Thanks very much for that, Sam. Next, we'll hear from Anne.
So I prefer standing up. Is this come out? Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me. What I'd like to do is pass on some of the lessons I've drawn from the hundreds of people who've contacted me since the election. I mean, first, we clearly do need to look at both our policies and the way we make policies, if for no other reason than we lost the election. We lost millions of votes over the last 2 elections. We lost dozens of MPs, and we have to get them back. It's also clear to me, though, that we cannot go into some kind of retreat hidden away from the world for months or years while we contemplate our navels and work out how we're going to come back and what we're going to do next. We have to do it in public, with our members, with our supporters, with the public. The reason I say that is partly because the message from members is that they are, in general, in good spirits. I think for 2 reasons. One is that at one point it seemed as if things could have been much worse. We could have had an absolute Tory majority overall. And the other is that nationally, Labour won back over 400 council seats. It's the first time we've won back that number of seats since before 1997, and that's cheered a lot of people up. So we have those to build on. And the mood among members is summed up by one quote which said, we're not licking our wounds, we're sharpening our knives. And if members in Aylesbury can say that, then none of the rest of us have any excuse for not saying it. The other thing I'm picking up strongly is some disappointment about among MPs, because they see MPs in the parliamentary party as the people who should be leading the campaign at the moment. And there are really 2 things. One is they don't see enough shadow ministers standing up and questioning the Tory Lib Dem allegation that all these cuts are due to Labour's financial mismanagement of the economy. We're clearing up the mess that Labour left. It is their fault, not ours. And not enough people are standing up and saying there were good reasons for what we did. Unemployment would be 500,000 higher if we hadn't done this, and so on. And the other is, I had a message from a member who was watching a debate on poverty, and all the Tory MPs and Lib Dem MPs queuing up to say how much they cared about people's life chances and the disadvantaged and everything else. The camera panned across the other side of the House. There was one front bench Labour person there and no MPs at all. They appreciate MPs have many other things to do, but they say, couldn't you kind of arrange a rota system for some of them to be in the chamber when poverty is being debated and question some of the lies that are being told? One of the things I hope about the leadership contest is that it will illustrate these qualities in the candidates. Obviously, we can't pretend that everything we did up until the election was right, but I do want a limitation on the time that the candidates spend apologising for Iraq or beating themselves up or the party up or each other up. What I want to see is selective, intelligent questioning of the Tory Lib Dem actions where they hurt our people, and also taking them on and promoting their positive vision for the future, not just what the government is doing that's wrong, but what Labour, what they as leader would do instead. Because the other thing we're tied by is various statements before the election saying that we would also make cuts, we'd just defer them for a year. So again, there's this allegation of, well, you'd do just the same, wouldn't you? We have to have a positive agenda and one which is distinctive. I'm glad that the wider needs of the party have been recognised by MPs who nominated candidates, and we now do have a wide range of views among the leadership candidates, and I hope for the fullest possible debate, and I'm glad that Compass is starting that today. Looking forward, I think there are some groups that we need to pay particular attention to. One of them Sam's already mentioned, well, 2 actually. One is the 18 or 20,000 members who've joined the party since the election. We need to find out who they are and what they ask them what they want. I mean, there may be parts of the country where a new member gets a piece of paper, goes along to the first branch meeting, and goes back and tells their partner, I had a wonderful time, absolutely stunning, I can't wait until the next one. I have to tell you, this is not the experience in Oxford. And unless we do something positive to find out what the new members want, or the returning members, and meet those needs, they will be members for 1 year only. They will not be with us next year. And overlapping with that are young members who are particularly important, particularly if the coalition proves to be more durable than we hope, and we have a longer march back to power than we anticipate. So they're going to be the people with the ideas and the energy to take the government back. The other groups I would add are members in the south-southeast. In the southeast, the southwest and the eastern regions put together, we now have 10 Labour MPs out of nearly 200 constituencies. Most of those members have no direct connection with power, and they need to feel drawn in as well. In terms of policy making, yes, there will be another review of policy making structures at some point in the next year or so, and I'm sure we'll all feed into that. I think we need to engage at two levels. The first is with local parties, and there is a challenge for local parties in meeting the needs of new members, bringing them together, organising discussions on policy as well as campaigning, feeding those views in through the party's structures and getting them recognised, acknowledged and where sensible and appropriate accepted. There's also a need to work with the large number of members who don't get to meetings but who do communicate with the party directly, and one of the most frustrating things that I pick up from members is all the messages that come from headquarters about all the wonderful things we're doing, and they mail back and they get an automated message which says, thank you for answering, your views are important to us, your message has not been read. And if I could change one thing about the way the party works, it would be to have every message read, acknowledged, and if possible, replied to. So I think it's not an either or, it's not local versus the centre, it's the two working together to complement each other. And other than that, I'm actually very keen to hear all your ideas about what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Anne. Douglas.
Gavin, thank you. The difficulty in the introductory remarks that we make in a session like this is we can try and cover everything and end up saying nothing. So I'm very happy to participate in the conversation in terms of where we go, but I'm not going to concentrate in my introductory remarks on the policies that we need to develop, although I'm very happy to talk about them, or indeed the structures which form so often the main part of any conversation about what renewal of our party looks like. Instead, I think we should start with the election and recognise some of the trends that account for where we ended up. And then I'd like to make three recommendations in terms of the way that I think we need to chart the road ahead. Firstly, just a brief sense of the election. There's a paradox at the heart of this result, which is that if you look at the share of the vote we received, it's within 1% of our share of vote in 1983. By any reckoning, a very poor showing for the Labour Party. For the first time ever, both the main political parties, if their votes were added together, accounted for less than 2/3 of the votes cast. And in that sense, we need to be humble in the face of that evidence that there were millions and millions of people who in previous elections had voted Labour who chose on this occasion not to vote Labour. Yet how do we account for the kind of optimism that Anne was just describing, both amongst our members and that is very apparent amongst the Parliamentary Labour Party? I said somewhere else recently that it feels a bit like you've been in a car crash and suddenly you're able to walk away, because we've ended up with broadly the same number of members of Parliament that we had in the 1992 election, not the 1983 election. And I say that because it should give us